we should adapt to the new behavior of new technologies. For example, telecommunications at one point was using home telephony. We communicate using voice at a certain place. When the evolution takes place and the cellular form comes, the behavior of communication changed. We don't need to stay at the same place in certain period of time to make calls, but rather we can do it anywhere. So the mobility is diverse. Another is for communication like cellular or home telephone. They are also different entity of service. So in that time, the regulator, in this case is the government, had a task to regulate how the service delivered to the customer. When a provider or telecommunication provider delivers service to the subscribed user, there is some quality that should be maintained, quality of service. For example, bandwidth, latency, and download speed. These parameters that should be maintained for delivering service to the user, so the user can enjoy and be satisfied, as they're the one who pay for the service. NGN is a new technology that will deliver new platform of service to the user. There are many aspects that change from the legacy networks to NGN. The new service technology that is delivered to the user should be accompanied by a new policy. Which aspect that we need to update, change, and maybe remove from the regulations? There are 4 principles based on the principle of global information infrastructure development, which is like a reference of how the income of nations is used to develop and build the telecommunication service, availability and diffusion of high-speed infrastructure, growth and development of multimedia services, fair access and use of infrastructures for both customers and service providers, and interconnection and interoperability of infrastructure and services. Availability and diffusion of high-speed infrastructure means that services require higher quality of service, like good audio, high-definition video, and so on, as its availability is demanding to the user. People used to enjoy analog home telephony, but now they need it more. So there is a new technology that we use now, called cellular phone. Growth and development of multimedia services means that not only the quality of service is raised, but the new technologies must also be invented. 3G used to be what everyone uses as 4G came along. The shift of people changed to that technology. Maybe in the upcoming future there will be new things implemented like 5G, virtual reality hologram, and more. Fair access and use of infrastructure for both customer and service providers. If there is infrastructure that has been built, it is important to guarantee that everybody can access this infrastructure for both ends, the customers and the service providers. To build a nation infrastructure network, it requires huge costs that service provider couldn't afford. Government must help in funding the investment so that everybody can use the service. Last one, interconnection and interoperability of infrastructure and services. Interconnection among or between 2 or more providers should be clear in agreement under certain regulations, while interoperability operate together, support the connection between the service to the subscribers, so every person and subscriber can call others with their different preferred subscriber. There are many services that can be delivered using NGN. For example, voice, internet, video, broadcasting, etc. And then you can use only one device to enjoy many services, like smartphones or other multifunctional terminal. It is divided into 2 types of network, access network and the core network. Access network is, like its name, is the network that is used for access. It means to connect into the network. Wi-Fi is one of the example of access network. Access network or BTS, base transceiver station, is responsible for the connection between the user to the core network, can also be referred as the server. The core network or server is responsible for switching connected to the other end of the user through the process similar to this. Core network is also responsible for charging, recording, etc. In old legacy network, regulators must regulate the content as well as the network as one entity. In NGN network, regulators only regulate the contents, as it now is in a single body. Old legacy network has many regulatory body, spectrum allocation body, broadcast regulator, and telecommunication regulator, while in NGN era, all those existing bodies combine into one single body for telecommunication network. Move on to the economic regulation. Why economy should be maintained? The economy should be maintained because it can easily be unstable. As a provider company, the motivation they deliver the service is not only to provide a good service, but they also want money, not only for themselves, but to estimate the investment in their technologies for their subscribers. The provider company will not provide service if the investment is not beneficial in the long term. They will just go bankrupt. In the meantime, from the user's perspective, of course they want to enjoy services at a low price. Basic economy. The regulator must balance those opposite perspectives. For example, NGN ideally require a lot of fiber optic connection, or FTTH, fiber to the home, but installing those to the subscribers requires a lot of money and investment. The provider should calculate whether or not it gains profit. This is where regulation comes in, to estimate the provider how many fiber connection in a certain field, almost like a consultant. Competition is the main tool to develop good service, so that people are attracted to subscribe to the company provider. But there are also bad competition, which can be bad for company providers. The example of this can be when companies promote their internet package at a cheap price. They keep lowering the price to the point the company didn't gain profit at all, which makes them cannot innovate more or expand more infrastructure, etc. Lowering standard or quality is not good for every reasons. Regulator must be involved in this, so every company remains financially stable. Regulator can regulate how minimum the price of subscription. Facility-based competition means that operators are encouraged to provide a good network to gain users. Interconnecting policy are necessary to ensure that all customers of a service provider have contact with all other subscribers. Network unbundling policy is where network users pay at cost whenever they want more. They can just pay for that certain service again at the cost. Incentive to provider that develops internet broadband networks to boost growth in broadband subscribers. This is a way from the regulator to give taxes for the provider. Another problem is NGN access. Since NGN requires a high bandwidth capacity, the available access technology includes fiber to the home, FTTH, 4G, and 5G. However, these access technologies are mostly available in dense population areas, aka the city. But what about the people in remote areas? They don't have the infrastructure to enjoy NGN services. NGN access is potentially divided to those who are in different conditions, the one who accesses it and the one who couldn't. It is real and happening, and it is one of the challenges for the government to distribute the infrastructure so everyone can enjoy it. The way forward is fiberization. There are 2 points: investment incentive and providing ways, ducts, and poles. Investment incentive means government should support provider company by the investment and development of fiber so many people can access it. Decision to invest in the communication sector is affected by state of competition in the market and regulatory framework. Provide way, ducts, and poles means reducing barriers for municipal authorization because it can be complicated as of different opinions, ensuring on ducts investments for minimum maintenance, etc. Another problem is to change from legacy network to NGN interconnection. To change the system from legacy network, which is switch network, and to NGN, which is IP-based network. Switch network means the operator where phone calls are from pays the operator where phone calls are end, or the destination, while IP-based network means it's peering or exchange packet, paid peering exchange packet of third parties are included. Interconnection scheme uses commonly long-run incremental cost models or LRIC. A long-run incremental cost or LRIC is a forward-looking cost that a company needs to include on its accounting. Long-run incremental costs are gradual costs a company is able to predict and plan for over the long term. Correlating to that is numbering, naming, and addressing. Telephone number is key resource in PSTN or old legacy network that represents our identity, while domain names and IP address are key resources for Internet Network or NGN that represents our identity as well. To exchange the telephone number and IP-based addressing, ITU has recommendation with E.164, a number to Universal Resource Identifier or URI called Session Initiation Protocol or SIP. One of the solutions is by applying Universal Service Obligation. USO means operator provides a minimum set of services, which includes voice telephone service, to all users regardless of their geographical location within the national territory at an affordable price. Even though there may be significant differences in the cost of supply, it is basically like a subsidy. Efficient spectrum management is another problem that emerges. There are 3 things that must look for. There are licensed and unlicensed spectrum, There are many applications that are hungry spectrum bandwidth, and there are flexible spectrum assignment. From the government perspective, there are licensed and unlicensed spectrum. Licensed spectrum requires provider company pay to the government, as the government owns it and the provider needs it, while unlicensed spectrum is free spectrum that the government doesn't own, which makes them unable to gain money. This is a problem because spectrum is a limited resource. HDTV, broadband, wireless, etc. are hungry spectrum bandwidth. Flexible spectrum assignment is demanded to improve economic efficiency in spectrum markets and boost innovation. This also to improve spectrum efficiency. Other problem in this is other aspects such as emergency calling, lawful interception, and fixed mobile convergence. In old legacy networks, emergency calls requires dialing certain number, but this can be easily solved by redirecting the call through the internet addressing. Again, in old legacy networks, when somebody is in a call, the government can intercept the call by joining and recording the call with a simple redirecting cable. In the internet era, however, lawful interception becomes challenging, as packet-based network is distributed with many varieties, where it needs a high computing server. In fixed mobile convergence is the convergence between the fixed home telephony PSTN and mobile cellular network. It may sound simple, but it is quite complicated. Home telephony network is quite powerful because of its wire copper network with very limited bandwidth compared to the flexible mobile network.